in Gauteng. Just to remind you that the National Conference is the supreme ruling and controlling body of the ANC and shall be comprised of at least 90% of the delegates drawn from the branches elected at properly constituted branch general meetings. The number of delegates per branch shall be in proportion to their paid-up membership, provided that each branch in good standing shall be entitled to at least one delegate. The number of delegates allocated to each province shall be in proportion to the paid-up membership per province. Now, that is important to us because when we allocate membership, we can be as follows, because we must complete all the work of auditing membership to know exactly what is the size of membership, what is the size of the delegation. All National Executive Committee members shall attend ex officio as full participants and delegates to the conference. The remainder, remember this, the remainder 90% at least, it can be more than 90%, should be from the branches. Then the NEC should attend. Then the remainder of the voting delegates shall be allocated to members of the PEC and leagues. An additional an allocation of non-voting delegates will also be made. Non-voting delegates are basically invitees to conference. The most important part of the conference are the voting delegates, which is at least 90% branch delegates. Now, National Conference is called every 5 years by the ANC to decide and determine the policy, the program, and the constitution of the ANC. Only the conference can amend the constitution of the ANC. It will receive and decide on reports of the NEC, including the presidential address, the organizational report presented by the Secretary General, the financial report presented by the Treasurer General. It will cover the work of the leagues. Exercise the right to review, rectify, alter, and rescind any decision taken by any other structure or committee or officials of the ANC. So all these that are taken by the NEC, taken by the NGC, taken by policy conference, taken by officials, can only be changed by the National Conference of the ANC. It will also elect national officials. At this point in time, we say 80 additional members of the NEC, depending on the debate on the proposal that went to the National Policy Conference. The meeting of the NEC held in January adopted a roadmap towards this conference. In terms of the roadmap, we would, among others, convene the National Policy Conference, which we did in June, conduct the membership audits, and thereafter branches could hold BGMs as part of the final preparation towards the National Conference. To have a conference at whatever level, whether it's a regional or a provincial or a national conference, at least 70% of branches must be in good standing. That means 70% of the branches must pass the audit for the National Conference to be convened. So audit has now been completed in 6 of the 9 regions. Provinces being Gauteng, Mpumalanga, Limpopo, Northwest Free State, and the Northern Cape. We are still to complete the Eastern Cape, the Western Cape, and parts of KZN. We've audited a number of regions in KZN. Remember, KZN has 11 regions. We've done some of those regions, we've not completed them. All the branches that have passed the audit as per audit report sent to the provinces may now convene the BGMs in terms of the roadmap adopted by the NEC. The Regional Executive Committee, the BGMs will be overseen and presided over by the REC members. But to avoid controversies that we've experienced over time, that an REC member who was deployed did this, will be sending members of the provincial legislatures and members of parliament to also be part of monitoring the BGMs alongside the RGCs. They will go there to observe the processes and minimize the problems. The BGM must do the following. They must further discuss and consolidate the policy proposal arising from the National Policy Conference to concretize their branch position towards the 54th National Conference. Number two, they must nominate branch delegates as per their location to attend as full participants to the conference. Three, they must nominate candidates that will serve as members of the NEC and officials of the NEC. Branches are encouraged to reflect gender parity in their representation to National Conference. We're making this point to say we're encouraging because, for example, if a branch is allocated 3 or 7 or 5, that creates a lot of challenges, but there must be a drive and a confidence to ensure that we want to strike a gender parity in line with the 2015 NTC resolution to outlaw slates and reaffirm the role of the branch as the basic unit of the ANC. Every effort shall be made to ensure that branch nominations are not tampered with and that the will of the branches is reflected and respected. Rule 212.7 of the Constitution of the ANC enjoin us to that nomination for national officials as well as National Executive Committee shall be proposed by provinces. It says you can only be nominated by a province. That's what it says. Now, the branch nomination will therefore be consolidated into a provincial position, reflecting and respecting the will of the branches. This means that nomination from the branches will be counted as received and with no additional interference by Provincial General Council, and that will reflect the position of the province. So in other words, at the end of the process, all the nomination will be put together, province by province, overseen by the Electoral Commission, which will be confirmed by the NEC end of September, and based on the number of branches and branch nomination, will we determine nominations of a province. So we will not allow a situation where branches make a nomination by a big number, then the PGC votes and that ordering. That is an attempt to deal with the slates and the slate politics. In the next week, proposal for consideration for constitutional amendments will be circulated to the branches in line with Rule 28 of the ANC Constitution. Those amendments can only be adopted if they are supported by 2/3 of delegates in the conference. National Conference will deliberate and decide on any constitutional amendment affecting the election of the leadership before the election take place at the conference. And therefore, branches are now conduct all nominations in line with the Constitution as amended by the 53rd National Conference. In other words, what we will do here, at this point in time, there is a Constitution, but if there are decisions that change anything that affects elections, that will be discussed early in the conference, so that if it is applied after it has been adopted by conference. Only then will we be able to take them forward. The ANC directs all its structures to ensure that the business of the BGMs is conducted in an environment that is free from intimidation and intolerance. Harsh action will be taken against any form of ill discipline, and the ANC will not hesitate to speedily act to curb undemocratic and disruptive tendencies. The 54th National Conference must be solely concerned with uniting the ANC and coming up with practical and urgent action to deal with problems of the people, being landlessness, unemployment, poverty, and inequality. In this regard, the ANC welcomes the release of the GDP figures of the second quarter, which show a 2.5% growth, pulling the country out of the technical recession And this growth has largely been attributed to growth in primary sectors, being in the main agriculture and mining. While we are making some improvements, much more still remains to be done. The National Conference must be seized with the work of advancing the strides we have made to improve the lives of our people. We must build on the foundation laid and prove the lies of the statements made by, among others, the President of Zimbabwe, Comrade Robert Mugabe, that policies of the ANC made black South African paupers. Independent research stands as proof of work that has been done to create better life for majority of South Africans. This morning I phoned the Secretary General of Zimbabwe, Zizi, and I said to him, yes, of ZANU-PF, and I said to him, you see, Dr. Chombo, your president is all over Matiba, but the reality of the matter is that you have destroyed the economy in your country. We continue to create black millionaires in this country, including Zimbabwean millionaires. So refrain, your president, from making statements that are unresearched. This has been done in the responsible manner that has not brought our economy to its knees in pursuit of adventurism and populism. So if you are adventurous and populist, you can do anything, consequences are for others to correct. Our successes and challenges have been an outcome of progressive collective policy position of the ANC, not individual leaders. The attack on the person and legacy of Comrade Nelson Mandela by Comrade Mugabe is unwarranted and extremely unfortunate. We must steadily and surely work to realize our aspirations as encapsulated in the National Development Plan. The ANC, once again, expresses most sincere condolences to the family of Comrade Cindy Somakapa, especially his mother, his wife Gugu, and their 3 children on the loss of fearless and courageous revolutionary fighter. We condemn in the harshest possible terms the ongoing spate of political assassinations in the process of KZN and call for the speedy conclusion of the Memorandum Commission into this matter. Law enforcement agencies must act and act now to apprehend the perpetrators of these heinous crimes. The loss of life of Comrade Makaka and many comrades in that province must not be in vain. Thank you very much. Hajra, you say I'm battling to read. Don't ask me what is the problem. You are not a doctor.
In fact, SG, I would suggest that you stand here until we finish questions, because out of respect, I don't think it would be right that you stand one and so on. We'll take one question at a time, as all of you suggested in the last conversation with the SG. We'll start with you, Chairperson. Your direct question to the Secretary General, followed by Hajra. Looks like those are the only 2 questions.
No. Every question I answer, then we go to
yes. Yes.
First question, SG, I just want clarity. Earlier on in the year, you had spoken about the fact that branches will nominate, and then those nominations will go directly to the electoral body that is overseeing the election. In what you were saying now, it sounded like it has changed. If you could clarify that for me.
No, what will happen is that it has not changed, because the National Electoral Commission that is being set up will open the boxes. There will be an agency which gives support to the Electoral Commission, but boxes will be opened in the presence and observed by the Electoral Commission. But the reason that we say that should be done in the presence of provinces is to comply with the constitutional provisions that says nominations must come from the provinces. So in other words, we'll calculate the nominations of the branches per province in their presence, and therefore determine which candidate has been nominated with the highest number in each province.
From the branches.
From the branches. So we're not changing that.
Do you have a follow-up?
The follow-up is around audits. The people that have suggested that the elective conference might not go ahead as scheduled because of the contestation around branch audits. And you're also saying that there are some that are yet to be completed. Have you put a new deadline on when they will be completed, and how confident are you that you will make it in time?
I don't think we've had a train smash around audits, Matlas. We've done audits. Let me tell you the audit process, because if you have no clue, you'll have big picture of this train smash that is coming. When we do audits, we finish audits, we send them back to the region for branches to make corrections if they contest the outcome of the audit. Only after those corrections do we sign the final audit. That's why we say after that there should be no contestation, but we've made provision for people who are actually quitting and want to appeal within 48 hours of the BGM, because on the base of the audits you hold the BGM. Don't wait for another 2 weeks and then think there or get mobilized and say I'm appealing a BGM. If you are in the BGM, you have a query about it, appeal within 48 hours. So I don't know who are talking to you. I don't think there will be audits that are responsible for the conference not to go ahead.
SG, also questions of clarity. If I'm remembering previous conferences correctly, the boxes at the PGC and the national always opened in the presence of the Electoral Commission. So the only difference in terms of electoral reform here is that MPs and MPLs will be present at the BGMs. So if that's true, then please help us understand the thinking behind choosing this modality of MPs and MPLs, and then do branches have the guidelines to start with nominations, with BGMs for nominations?
You said boxes were open in the presence of
the electoral commissions at provincial and national level. That's happened before.
That is exactly the point we're making. There's nothing new there. We say all the boxes will be opened in a provincial general council overseen by the electoral commission. That's no change. The only change is that they are not opened in the region, they are opened at provincial level to comply with the constitution. And the province will be there as an observer in that process. So the electoral agency will open the boxes, the electoral commission will be present, and they will be part of counting the outcome of those elections. And therefore, nothing very new has taken except that there is a tighter supervision of the work of the electoral process. The guidelines are complete. Yesterday, we put them to the NWC. Few changes are done. Those amendments are being effected. We'll circulate them.
Would you like to go first? In any case, Mbala, it's good to see you. Two questions. What action is the ANC going to take at national level to stop the political abattoir that is forming down in KZN? You've got a former ANC Secretary General that's now passed away. He was murdered. It's political assassination. What are you going to offer besides words? What action is the ANC going to take to stop their members being culled? And secondly, in the run-up to 2007, I wasn't there, but it was well reported that state institutions were used to politically neutralize political opponents. And again, this allegation is coming out by none other than the Deputy President that state institutions, intelligence services, are being used against him. It's all eerily reminiscent of Polokwane's run-up in 2007. Do you have any comment on that? And what is the ANC going to do to ensure that the face uphill task with regards to fending off a fine from state institutions or the state institutions being used against them?
Your questions take us to an area where we must assume things happen in a particular way, very hypothetical. In KZN, there is a commission led by Mwerane, Advocate Mwerane, into these killings. Our attitude is that let's allow that commission to complete its work. The report we have received is that it is about to complete it. Let's see what recommendations come out of that commission that we can guide us in dealing with assassination. Assassination are criminal activities. At the end of the day, it is the police that must deal with assassinations. The ANC on its own politically can talk politics to its members, warn them against being so angry and have hatred for each other. But at the end of the day, once you take the life, you are not political, you are a criminal. Therefore, police must actually deal with that aspect. That's what we should do. And in KZN, the Minister of Police has been asked to come there and intervene. And our report is that there is a difference since he is actually sending even police that are not from KZN, because he is dealing not with political activity but with criminal activity. Use of state institutions used for political attacks. I don't know, Tandabandu, how old were you when Verwoerd was assassinated in Parliament?
I wasn't there.
Oh gosh, okay. Let me tell you the story. Verwoerd got assassinated in Parliament. Second in command in the Nationalist Party is Ben Skuman. And to take him out of the race, securocrats in the Nationalist Party blackmail him up to his wife. He gives up and he gets out of the way, and securocrats gave us a B.J. Foster. And the outcome of being given a B.J. Foster was the info scandal. Now, all we can say about state institutions being used is that we're hoping that we don't degenerate to the level where the National Party is, because that was the beginning of the end. If we go to a conference in December and people begin to be personal and go and use all the dirty tricks, you must appreciate that it is not the dirty tricks that are important, it is the destruction of the essence of politics and the destruction of the African National Congress. That's all we can say on this issue. To us, comrades must contest on the basis of logic, on the basis of policies, on the basis of traditions, on the basis of values of the ANC. Comrades must present their case, what they will do to take the country out of the morass it is drifting into. That is what we should be looking at. And my appeal is that journalists as well must resist being tools for dirty tricks.
As you had mentioned here from 6, you mentioned on the processes we are having and there are reports that regions like China,
You want to speak up, is a loud noise from your generator.
yeah. As you were saying, you mentioned Northwest as one of the provinces which has been audited, and there have been reports that some regions there like China, who are perceived to be supporting candidates of Deputy President have been disbanded. I want to know as to whether, and there are, there are quite a number of cases similar to this one, like it was. And I want to know what is the ANC doing to address this. My second question on your call to your counterpart in Zimbabwe this morning. Can we say it was a formal complaint by ANC to Zambia, or it's just a clear of the chair?
No, I said I phoned the Secretary General of ZANU-PF. That is not casual. When Secretaries General talk, they are not in a picnic. It doesn't work that way. I did raise this issue with the Secretary of ZANU-PF formally on my capacity as Secretary General of the ANC, not as a friend. I can also tell you that he said, I will come back to you, let me do some homework and come back to you. And we're waiting for the response. Now, on the question of the regions, maybe let me give you information, because sometimes you see, when you give information and you mix visitors and pesukers, it becomes a problem. Bujanala is not disbanded now. It has outlived the period of a disbanded region. It was disbanded a long time ago. Actually, for your information, for accuracy of your facts when you raise it next time, Bujanala was never disbanded. 19 members of the REC resigned. Okay. And once 19 members resigned, the majority of the REC were not there. Therefore, there was no REC. It collapsed. Now, it is on the way to its regional conference. Many of the branches that are complaining of the disbandment are resisting going to the conference now. And that is what we are dealing with. They have a court case which we have accepted. We'll go to that. But I'm not sure if it will be accurate to link that to the support of a candidate in the 2014 elections. There may be other problems associated with support of candidates, but Bujanala is a bad example for that.
I can't see who's behind you.
Good afternoon. SG, given that we're still waiting on that judgment around the KZN executive leadership, how could that outcome affect either the audit of the president or whether or not we can meet that 70% target to convene the elective conference in December? Just if the executive leadership of that province is dissolved, because it is one of the biggest provinces in terms of ANC.
You know, when you deal with a case like that one, there are many stories that get circulated, many of them not based on any experience. We had a similar judgment on the Free State on the eve of Mangaung conference. I am sure some of you will remember that. And that judgment affected members of the PEC as delegates to that conference. It didn't affect the Free State. The Free State attended the conference all because a conference is not an assembly of provinces. It is an assembly of branch delegates. That's what a conference is all about. It's an assembly of branch delegates. So that 90% of branch delegates will be intact. It will go to a conference. It will go ahead. The NEC will go in full steam. Provinces, PECs are allocated seats in a conference. It may affect the seats allocated to the KZN PEC. So that's why we always say that some others say the work of that provincial executive will all be nullified. Organizations are living organs. Law is not retrospective in application. That outcome will depend on the wording of the judgment, basically. But branches are branches of the ANC. They will come to the conference as branches of the ANC.
Your reaction on what happened yesterday in Ekurhuleni, where some branch members marched the
Let me tell you the dynamics of the period leading to a conference is that even before we open nominations, all structures make various announcements. For example, in our constitution, there is no provision of the REC nominating any candidate, basically. So the branches must to the regional office to express their dissatisfaction, is their expression of their dissatisfaction with their leadership in that region. But the effect of what was announced by Ego Rulen is that it's a structure that has no authority to nominate in any way, by the way. It is going to be those branches that make nominations. And they must all be rest assured that they will be given space to make nominations. So what the REC announced is their views. They are putting their views to influence the thinking in the debate. It's not a nomination. So there is no nomination from Ego Ruleni of any lineup.
Thank you. I think it is covered.
Thank you.
Between Councillor and Chairperson and MC.
No, it's Klengiwe.
Anyway.
Yeah. No, Bala, just for the sake of clarity, you said that some regions may now convene BGMs. Does it mean now they don't necessarily need to wait for the guidelines to be adopted by NEC? Does it mean now they can just go ahead and have BGMs as in like tomorrow?
Let me tell you what the NEC does and how organizations work. The NEC takes a decision in January. Here is a roadmap. September and October is a month for BGMs. We'll send those guidelines pending the ratification by the NEC. But we can't stop the work of the branches until NEC sits end of September. That's what it means.
Turn around. Thank you. Are you okay? Or you have a follow-up?
Yeah, I'm okay. I think I have it's not really a follow-up. The other question would be the issue relating to Deputy President Cyril Ramaphosa. Now, he has hinted at state institutions being used to settle some political scores. Now, is there anything that the ANC is doing thus far? How seriously are you taking this particular claim?
One of the things I always avoid is to be spokesperson of other officials individually. I avoid that. I gave you an answer in principle of what our view is on the use of state institutions for political outcomes. That's why I took time to give you the history in the Nationalist Party, that if we get relegated to that level, the ANC is sure going to die. Now, I am not going to get into the details of the DP, what he feels about that and that. I can't get to that space. Tukunika principle. With the use of state institutions, we fought it when we got to Mangau, to Pulugwana. We can't do that now. As the people who were fighting tooth and nail against use of state institutions against one another. So it can't be when we are in power, allow that to continue when we are in power. We fought it when we go to Mangau, to Pulugwana. Okay.
Or it's the same question, but the greatest of perspective. What is the ANC doing besides offering us a history lesson saying let's not go down this road? You as the Secretary General of the ANC need to ensure that it's a fair contest come December at the ANC World Conference. And really saying that we shouldn't go down the same road as the National Party. Is that good enough? I mean, what active steps is the party taking to ensure that state institutions are not going to be used in this electoral contest? I understand that you'll be emanating the National Party and going down a very, very difficult road, and you say that it will destroy the ANC, but what are you doing to ensure that it is not going to? And on that note, as well, with the greatest of respect, these political killings down in KZN, it's ANC versus ANC, and surely is it good enough for the ANC to stand back and say, well, let's wait until the end of the Morani Commission, when your deployee, Killing Bulula, are you asking him for an update? putting pressure on him to ensure that this stops? Is it a matter that's being taken up at the highest level of the top six, so the ANC, NEC? I understand the importance of the separation between party and state, but surely as the governing party, as it is your members against your own members, you would be expected to do something more.
demystify this power of the SABC. We must ensure that there is a fair contest. It is not an individual responsibility, it is a leadership responsibility, and we ensure that the ANC have a confidence that it is and that leadership of the ANC is not only national, it is in the provinces, it is in the regions, it is in the branches. So let's demystify that. Number two, state institutions are in the state. That's why we call them state institutions. The ANC has no direct authority over state institutions. Okay, when they listen to your conversations over the telephone, all we can say for sometimes say, hey, this thing of being listened to is bad. And say to comrades who are in the running the state, please, man, let's not be listened to when we phone. That's why you can't ask a question, what will the ANC do with state institutions? Otherwise, if you give that to me and I'm not running the state, I may decide, let's close the intelligence. Eh? It will be a totally ill-informed decision on my part. So I'm appealing to you to appreciate that on some of these issues, we appeal to the same state institution that every citizen is appealing to. The same applies to the KZN. We do political work. We were in KZN even 2 weeks ago. We are going to KZN on Monday. We're doing political work, but assassinations are political activities, but they are criminal. Therefore, institutions of the state must do their work in ensuring that anybody who assassinates another person must be arrested. Whether there is a political, they will emerge. And I can tell you, many people are arrested for political assassination. When they go to court, the verdict talk about something totally different to the political reasons that we are all imagining. So let's not venture into getting into details to things that are subject of investigation. And goes. I will.
The last end.
A week or so ago, the presidency said President Jacob Zuma was waiting for that review application. But my understanding is the NDC has resolved on a separate commission of inquiry that the president has agreed to establish. Have you gotten any feedback from the president on when this commission will be established? A separate one, that is. The TG told us 3 weeks ago that the NEC decided that while the president waits to review the public protector's remedial action in court, there must be a separate commission of inquiry to investigate allegations of state capture. Is that not the case?
We didn't say separate. We said there's nothing that stops a commission of inquiry from being established. That's what we said. And we stand by that.
And you've been speaking a lot, about the urgency of this commission of inquiry, but there's no indication from the president. That's why I'm asking if there's been feedback on the timeline.
Again, you take me to the point that Tandabando took me to. And the president is the only person who has the constitutional power to establish a commission of inquiry. Okay. All the best we can do is to nudge him to accelerate the pace. Yes.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for accepting our sincere apologies. We hope the next time we come back, Umashaba would have returned the power.